Hey, what's up? I'm Channel Pup, fanboy supervillain. And today we are going to be discussing the newly released trailer for Venom 3, now titled Venom: The Last Dance. Why it's not titled Vethrenum, I will never understand. But I've got quite a lot to say about this trailer. I want to talk not just about, what's in this trailer and what we can expect from Vethrenum, I'm calling it that, that's how I would call it, but also how I think Sony might have really irreparably fumbled the bag with this. No matter how kind of good this movie actually does look. Subscribe, patron, you know how it is. I don't need to explain that to you. Let's go straight into it. So for a bit of context, I do want to give my opinions on the first two Venom movies really quickly. I think even though the Sonyverse is a complete joke, the two Venom movies represent the absolute best of the Sonyverse. And no, that isn't a particularly high bar, given that Madame Web and Morbius are the only non-Venom films in the Sonyverse, and they stink. I thought the first Venom movie was overall okay. I thought the second half was actually really solid. The first half was kind of a snooze. Venom: Let There Be Carnage was a much more sure-footed film. It knew what it wanted to be. It was just over-the-top, candy-colored cartoon silliness that absolutely played into the strength of the duo of Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock and Venom, while also giving us a significant upgrade in the villain department. No, this wasn't my ideal version of Venom and Carnage, but this was a solid movie and a really good time. And a lot of that was thanks to it having a much better overall direction. I thought Andy Serkis did an excellent job with Venom: Let There Be Carnage, which I'm pretty sure is one of the first films he's ever directed. So I was a little skeptical when it was revealed that Kelly Marcel would be directing the third Venom movie. Not because of anything against Kelly Marcel, but simply because it's not Andy Serkis coming back, and I thought Andy Serkis did an amazing job. Kelly Marcel, however, is the writer of the previous films, and take from that what you will. But this does appear to be her directing debut, and from what's on display in this trailer, I think she's done a great job if this is anything to go by. It definitely feels very different to the previous two films in terms of that directing style. It's less colorful and House of Horrors than Let There Be Carnage was, and it's a little less try-hard contemporary, a little less nihilistic than the first one. But there's a huge sense of scope on display here, and it looks quite grimy, especially in the dog trafficker sequence, which I would talk about in a bit. And I suppose I can appreciate that all three of these films do have unique directing styles. The voices of Ruben Fleischer, Andy Serkis, and Kelly Marcel might actually be more on display in these movies than what you typically see from directors in tentpole blockbusters. Credit where it's due, the Venom films will always have that going for them, if that's the case with this third one. Now, moving over to kind of analyzing the trailer itself, we can see that while Venom and Eddie are on much better terms than they were in the previous film, with Eddie giving Venom the chance to eat some criminal brains, there's still that odd couple dynamic on full display here, and the trailer is very head-on about this. That's what they lead with. We've got Eddie Brock entering the hideout of what appear to be dog traffickers. I don't know, I've seen other people say that there may be a cartel, but they got dogs in cages. Maybe they're gonna make them fight or something. Well, Eddie has the whole tough guy facade. He's trying to kind of play it down, and when Venom emerges, Eddie kind of wants to introduce himself as this very intimidating force to be reckoned with, while Venom is being very boisterous. They kind of do the whole "We are Venom" line, but Eddie and Venom have two very different deliveries of it, and they kind of squabble about, how to actually say it. Now, while comedy was absolutely the strength of the previous films, with loads of funny, quotable moments, particularly pertaining to Venom's enthusiasm, unfortunately for the leading joke in this trailer, I didn't actually find it very funny. And what's worse is I could see that it was really, really trying, but in my opinion, I just didn't find it funny. I didn't laugh. I think it would have been a lot better if Venom had come in with his boisterous line delivery at odds with Eddie's, and then Eddie just kind of rolls his eyes and goes into battle, rather than the two kind of quibbling. Quicker, more subtle, and maybe that's how it will be in the film, I don't know, but this wouldn't be the first time a trailer has kind of killed a joke or changed it. I mean, in one case, in Venom: Let There Be Carnage, there was a joke in the trailers that was actually better than it was in the movies, and that was the Sonny and Cher joke. The delivery was just a lot more downplayed in the trailer, and it was funnier because of that. That being said, the action sequence in the hideout follows with Venom just throwing these thugs around, eating their brains, and it looks like a fantastic sequence, and it actually reminds me quite a bit of the Batman v Superman warehouse scene, in that it's very kinetic, very grimy, and looks to be pretty violent, or about as violent as they can get it without risking an R rating. And seeing Venom freeing the dogs from the cages had me going, hell yeah. And this is where we are introduced to our antagonist of this film, played by Chiwetel Ejiofor, who is leading a government operation to hunt Venom down. As I mean, hey, he's an alien among us. Don't say it. The military will be all over that. And here's another area where I'm a little trepidatious. Where do you go from Carnage in the second film? Especially when they killed Carnage off. If not Spider-Man, then Carnage is Venom's arch-nemesis. You ask anyone to name an adversary for Venom that isn't Spider-Man, Carnage will come up in conversation. Maybe Wolverine if they like Ultimate Spider-Man. And I'm also a little more trepidatious because when the villain hasn't been Carnage, the villains have been generally quite weak in these films. Carlton Drake, aka Riot, was the weak link of the first Venom movie. It was a movie that needed a good villain, but Carlton Drake felt like a villain written by ChatGPT. Overly self-serious, didn't really offset the boisterousness of Venom himself very well, felt very by the numbers. Carnage and Shriek worked as well as they did because they were cartoony enough to offset Venom. They were both incredibly over the top, and naturally, like Carnage, a serial killer psychopath paired with a symbiote. Excellent, that's gonna be a good time to watch. So this new antagonist, played by Ejiofor, he doesn't necessarily have to be over the top and scenery chewing like Carnage, but whether he's a larger-than-life or stoic and downplayed character, it does still need to be, to an extent, cartoony to properly offset Venom as a protagonist. And that is where Carlton Drake failed. Chiwetel Ejiofor is a talented enough actor for me to have some faith that he can elevate whatever material he's given, as was Riz Ahmed though. I already felt a little fearful that we disposed of Venom's best adversary too soon and that whatever we get next won't live up to that. And yeah, that concern has not been put to bed here. So it looks like the reason why Ejiofor's character is chasing Venom down is because he's discovered the small piece of symbiote left at that Hawaiian cocktail bar from the post-credits of Spider-Man No Way Home. And wait. Just hang on a second. Did that scene not take place in the MCU? That is the same bartender in the same outfit, albeit with longer hair now. So how long was this symbiote hanging out in that bar? And if this scene wasn't in the MCU, why did the bartender list off all of those MCU characters, talk about how his family disappeared for 5 years? Where did Venom transport off to, and what was any of that? Does this mean that the symbiote tease at the end of No Way Home wasn't setting up Black Suit Spider-Man, but was instead setting up this? Would a little consistency kill you, Sony? I understand retcons are a thing, little inconsistencies are a thing, but if this is the case, that was just the home universe and we're just kind of retconning that, I really don't like having my viewing experiences invalidated by changing rules. It's just cheating. But then knowing Sony and how they were with Morbius and Madam Web, there is a chance that this just won't be in the movie. Alright, but getting back to kind of the point of the villain, it is cool to have a purely human threat this time as opposed to a story that culminates in two symbiotes just brawling it out. We've had that with the first two, so Venom just being chased down by the military is a cool idea. I'm also loving what I'm seeing of Eddie and Venom on this road trip as they travel the continent, eventually making their way to Vegas where they run into Mrs. Chen, which is nice to see given that I'm not seeing any of the supporting cast from the previous films here, not even Anne. And I understand why, but god damn it, I miss Sonny and Cher. Whoever had the idea of giving Venom chickens in the second film, just give them a pay rise. It would be a shame not to include the supporting cast of the previous two films in this one. As, I mean, remember what happened with Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania? That's not to say that the second Ant-Man and the Wasp was anything to write home about, but the supporting characters added a lot of necessary life to those movies, and the third one, just, their absence was really felt. I hope we're not in for the same problem with Venom: The Last Dance. But seeing Venom dancing with Mrs. Chen really does warm my heart. She is the Mr. Ditkovich of the Venom movie franchise. So, I spoke too soon about the purely human threat thing, because there appears to be a symbiote invasion happening as Venom's past catches up to him. The symbiotes have found him. So it's kind of a neat juxtaposition, I guess. Venom on the run from his own kind, Eddie on the run from his. Overwhelming forces, big numbers. Yeah, okay, cool. Does totally nullify what I said about, you know, purely a human threat this time, but hey-ho, it is what it is. Now we're treated to seeing Venom battling eldritch horrors that I can only just about comprehend atop planes, and a tease that our favorite symbiote schlub duo may not make it out alive this time. I think they will. Sony are never gonna close and lock the door when there's money to be made. Patrick Mulligan, the cop from the previous film, is also just kinda in there after being set up by the previous film. I wonder how he's gonna factor in and if we'll actually get to see him become Toxin and what that means for his role, given that Toxin was more of a lawful good character than anything else. Yeah, that's starting to feel a little packed now. There's a final stinger where Venom infects a horse for him and Eddie to make a daring getaway, and hell yeah, symbiote horse, that's raw as fuck. Give me more of that. On its own 2 feet, this movie does look good. There's a much larger sense of scope to it, the action looks great. The CGI for Venom is a noticeable step up. I don't know if it's the lighting or if there's a higher fidelity model, I don't really know much about CGI animation in this case, but he does look better this time. Shame we're probably never gonna get to see a big white spider on the chest. It would really just complete this design. I think the movie is a little at risk of being potentially overstuffed. We've got this cross-country road trip, which is Venom on the run from the government, then you've got a symbiote invasion, and then you've got Patrick Mulligan in there. How's he gonna factor into this? And God, I would love it if they were hiding Spider-Man, but, like, I don't see how you could really fit him into this particular story. But I want them to. You shouldn't have to justify Spider-Man being in a Venom story, but that's the world we live in. That's what happens when Venom is in a different universe to Spider-Man. I wouldn't normally worry about overstuffing a film because that is what pacing and imagination are for. You have good writers for that reason. But Sony do have a track record of overstuffing these films, so I am naturally a little trepidatious there. But there is one big problem that Venom: The Last Dance is facing, and it's one that Sony really didn't need to create for themselves, but did anyway. I have blue balls. I can only deal with so much teasing before I want to see things paid off. And this is the 11th hour, the last minute, The Last Dance, Tom Hardy's final Venom appearance, allegedly. Now, no matter what these movies did, or how good they were, there was always going to be an elephant in the room when it came to Venom movies divorced from Spider-Man. Spidey mythology, non-existent. But these films managed to make it work well enough. This wasn't the story of the journalist Peter Exposed who bonded with the symbiote over a mutual hatred of Peter Parker. This was the story of a schlub journalist who kind of stumbled into a new destiny alongside his alien BFF, and on those terms, they made this work. I can begrudgingly accept that this would be a Venom film series divorced from Spidey. And I can also understand why that had to be the case. It does seem that Marvel Studios have live-action Spider-Man under lock and key right now with their Sony agreement. I'm 100% certain that Sony and the producers of these Venom movies would have loved to have featured Spider-Man in one of these. Heck, they've been talking about it since the first movie. I'm pretty sure that if Sony could, they would have made Spider-Man 4 with Tobey Maguire and The Amazing Spider-Man 3 with Andrew Garfield and had Spider-Man characters showing up in these movies by now. For better or for worse, why? Because it's money. I do not think Sony are going to choose to bury the leads like this. So I can accept that for this iteration, while holding out hope that some other time we'll get to see a new version of Venom throw down with Spidey or team up, whatever, that these Venom movies are just their own thing. These are just sci-fi comedy romps. And while I think the first film is just okay, I think the second film does a great job with this premise. I was willing to accept these films on those terms, understanding that what I wanted to see was probably just not possible due to studio politics. But then, we had the post-credits of Venom: Let There Be Carnage. Transporting Venom into the MCU, him recognizing Spider-Man on the TV screen because of the multiversal symbiote hive mind, implying that, yeah, any version of Venom is going to have some form of relationship with Spider-Man, and that these two may meet. This was a game changer. This actively changed the rules of these movies and changed the terms. It said, hey, it doesn't just have to be that. We can do the things you want to see. Then when we next check in with Venom in Spider-Man No Way Home's post-credits, he's immediately sent home after never meeting Spider-Man. And we're not seeing any alternate universe Spider-Man in this trailer or other take on Spidey. We're seeing Venom on the run from the government and his symbiote brethren. The problem here is if this is the direction they have to go, the only direction they can go, or the only direction they're interested in going, I would rather they just hadn't teased Spider-Man then. I would rather the producers didn't bait us in behind-the-scenes interviews all about how Venom and Spidey may cross over someday. I would rather we didn't have that post-credit scene for Venom Let There Be Carnage. Because it's blue balls. I've got blue balls. And I can't fap to this, it doesn't have Spider-Man in it. So no matter how good this movie is, it will always be a blemish on this film series that we never saw Spider-Man and Venom meet. And that wouldn't be a fraction of the problem it is were it not teased. I do recognize that they are probably saving some surprises for the film, but this is a pretty packed sequel as it is. I don't see where they could really fit Spider-Man in here. If they can, awesome, but I doubt it. And then it's made worse by the implication that the symbiote wasn't even left in the MCU, so we may not even see an MCU version of Venom either. Boy, that No Way Home post-credit scene is the gift that keeps on sucking. I'll get over it. But it sucks because even if the backstory was completely different and his motivations bore minimal resemblance to the source material, we had a great character with this version of Venom, and Tom Hardy was brilliant in the role, and we never got to see him and Spider-Man play off of each other, and we never got to see that potential realized. In a future video, I do want to talk about how Venom could have been fit into Spider-Man No Way Home, and could have even made it a better movie for it. But I think for now, our last gambit for that is maybe Avengers Secret Wars. But man, just man, the movie itself looks good. I don't want people taking the wrong message away from this, but like, it isn't unreasonable to be disappointed by not seeing Venom and Spider-Man meet, considering these characters are synonymous with one another. And it just tells me that this Venom here is probably never going to become whole, which is such a shame, because it means that on the big screen, the most we've really seen of Spider-Man and Venom together is Spider-Man 3, which is a fantastic movie, but Venom was only in that movie for 15 minutes. And while I personally love that version of Venom, I can understand why people who are huge fans of the character didn't really approve. So those are my overall thoughts on Venom 3 so far. What do you guys think? Comment below, discuss, and as always, if you enjoyed this video and you want to support more like it, be sure to hit subscribe, hit the like button, and in the description below is the link to my Patreon page, where for as little as $1 a month, you can get your name in the credits of these videos, with a special shout out going to the patrons in the $5 and above tiers. We have RT0, CalX, Hypes, Glad Goku, Dare Denny, SSS06, Kale Bennett, Ken K, Dazzle Fizzle. I've sent my evil clone to find some helium. Cyrus the Skeptic, Biotin. Oh no, I've used up all the helium. What am I meant to do now? And Vera Wild. Thank you folks so much for your generosity, and to all of you at home, thank you so much for watching, and have a great day. Now get out of here.